Jiha here. You can watch this episode in English, Korean, and Chinese. Change to your audio of choice by clicking on the settings here. So in K-dramas, Korean detectives are always eating jjajangmyeon, or black bean noodles. But did you know this actually used to look like this, which is still eaten in China today? So as a Korean who grew up in China, I'm going to tell you the history of this classic Korean takeout and show you how to make both versions of this savory noodle. So the history of the Korean jjajangmyeon goes back to the turn of the last century, when many Chinese immigrants left their homeland of Shandong and arrived at the port of Incheon. And soon enough, many of them opened restaurants in Incheon selling the foods of their homeland. And often on their menu was zhajiangmian, or Chinese black bean sauce noodles, like Mr. Wu Higuang, who opened Shandong Huiguan in 1908, which he changed to Konghwachun 3 years later. Actually, you can still visit the restaurant in Incheon today, which is now a museum dedicated to jjajangmyeon history. So, how do you make the original jjajangmyeon they used to sell in Incheon 100 years ago? Well, for some good jjajiang, you need 3 kinds of bean pastes. First, soybean paste, or huangdoujiang. This gives the sauce saltiness and earthiness. Then, we need tianmianjiang, or sweet bean paste. This gives the sauce sweetness and color. You probably know this as duck sauce. Finally, doubanjiang, or broad bean paste. This gives the sauce additional sweetness and a more mellow aroma. Oh, by the way, don't confuse this with the spicy pixian doubanjiang they use in Sichuan cooking. So the ratio I recommend is 3 parts huangdoujiang, 2 parts doubanjiang, and 1 part tianmianjiang. And yes, the paste should be a little too thick now, so we need to pour in a couple tablespoons of Shaoxing sherry or huadiaojiu to thin it out a little. If you can't get this stuff, just use water, that'll be fine. Oh, and we're making a lot of sauce today, enough for at least 10 portions. Now the aromatics. And even for a small pot of sauce, you need a good bundle of spring onions. Ideally, you should use those long, thick ones from Zhangqiu, but I couldn't find any. Anyhow, thinly slice and separate the leaves and the stems. Also take a thumb-sized knob of fresh ginger and mince as well. Finally, the protein. Some fatty pork belly, the fat and the meat separated and cubed. You basically need the same ratio of pork belly to bean paste. Oh, and if you can't eat animal protein, you can use scrambled eggs or mushrooms. Actually, that's what my dad makes back home. In a pot, throw in the fatty cubes first and fry until they render out their oil. Fish them out and fry the lean meat in the remaining oil. When it's brown and the oil is clear, fish the lean meat out as well. This way, we can prevent overcooking the pork. Now, in this vat of liquid gold that is pure lard, throw in your ginger and 1/3 of your spring onion, ideally the white stem parts only. And when they turn translucent and fragrant, you can pour in the bean paste and fry away. And the trick is like making a risotto. Flame on medium-low, constantly stirring to prevent any stickage at the bottom. Remember, the name of this sauce is zhajiang, which literally means fried sauce. So yeah, we'll need to fry this for a good 20 to 30 minutes. And for that reason, don't make a huge pot of this at once. There'll be too much sauce to stir through and you'll burn the bottom. That's why Beijingers prefer 小碗干炸, which literally means small bowl dry frying. Anyhow, after about 10 minutes, the sauce will begin to thicken and the room will smell amazing. Now it's time to throw in another 1/3 of the spring onion and fry for another couple of minutes. This way, the sauce will have a deeper, more layered aroma of the onion. Oh, how do we know if the sauce is getting there? When you scrape the bottom like that, the oil should pool at the bottom first, soon followed by the sauce. This shows us we got the consistency we need. And when you kill the heat, throw in the final 1/3 of the spring onion. This is called 稻炝锅 in Chinese and gives the sauce a fresh aromatic zing. And truly, this sauce is good for noodles, for rice, for steaming buns, for dipping vegetables, you name it. But for today, we are boiling our noodle of choice, albeit only 3/4 of 1 portion. Because for good Beijing jjajangmyeon, it's all about the toppings or mianma. The fanciest version calls for 13 different toppings, but 7 is more than enough when you're eating at home. For the raw toppings, we have cucumber, carrots, and radishes. For the cooked toppings, we have cabbage, celery, green beans, and edamame. Bring a pot of water to a boil and boil the cooked toppings just until they're tender. The cabbage you can slice into strips, and the green beans too. The edamame just blanch, and the celery into small cubes. In Beijing, they call this 苍蝇脑袋, or flies' heads. And the raw ingredients you can just chop into thin matchsticks. First slice into rounds, lay them flat, and chop finely. Now we're ready to eat. On your bowl of steaming noodles, or guotiao in Chinese, pile on the toppings and pour in the sauce with a good tablespoon of that lard. But as they say in northern China, noodles without garlic lose half of their flavor. So for that authentic experience, you need to munch on some raw garlic cloves in between bites of the noodle. The fresh heat of the raw garlic counters the oily savoriness. That being said, that classically Chinese flavor profile was hard to maintain with more than 100 years of history. They had to adapt to the Korean palate. Steps made easy, ingredients changed. And beginning with the all-important bean paste. I mean, authentic northern Chinese bean paste was just hard to come by in Korea, so restaurants had to improvise. Especially when in 1948, a man named Wang Songsan invented this, chunjang. And if this looks familiar, yes, this is basically the Chinese tianmianjiang we used earlier, but with added caramel coloring. And with this, restaurants could get that dark, luscious color with far less bean paste in their jajang sauce. And that's why in the modern Korean jjajangmyeon, we're only barely using a tablespoon of this chunjang to 1 packet of ground pork. And with this protein of choice, the sauce is called 유니짜장, or minced pork jjajang. But you can still use pork belly, mixed seafood, or even cubes of zucchini and potatoes for a more rustic version. But that's not where the localization ends, oh no. Remember how I couldn't find big, thick spring onions? Well, neither could they in Korea. With good spring onions being so expensive and so seasonal, they began using cheaper regular onions. So we're doing the same, and we'll finally chop 1 medium onion and the same knob of ginger. When the mixture of pork and bean paste is just about to stick to the bottom, add in the chopped aromats. And besides the onion and ginger, we also need a very Korean herb. You guessed it, a tablespoon of minced garlic. Fry until they're all fragrant, and we'll add in a tablespoon of soy sauce and oyster sauce too. You can also add in some sugar or honey if you want a little sweeter. And finally, to thicken the sauce and to stretch it further, pour in a slurry of 1 tablespoon of potato starch and about half a cup of water. And when the sauce is thick and glossy like that, pour it over your noodle of choice. And while they couldn't afford 13 toppings, we could still top with some cucumber matchsticks. But are we done? Oh no. If you go to the Pulgyeong region of Korea, they'll also fry up a sunny-side egg. The egg yolk gives you an almost luxurious mouthfeel. And instead of raw garlic cloves, served with some slices of tanmuji, or sweet yellow daikon pickles. And that's the Japanese colonial influence in there too. So, which one's better? Korean or Chinese? Well, they're just so nostalgic for me. You'll just have to figure it out for yourself.